At the beginning of RWBY Volume 7, Ruby Rose had to make one of the most difficult decisions of her young life. To either reveal everything that they know about Salem, or to withhold this vital information from General Ironwood. Of course she chose the latter option, but one must wonder, what if they told Ironwood everything up front? Before we dive in, this video suggestion comes from PC the Unicorn on our Discord server. He also has a YouTube channel, so feel free to check him out if you'd like. Link down in the description. Despite demanding that Ozpin be more transparent, Team RWBY has been learning that practicing what you preach in a situation as complicated as this is a tad more complicated. I don't entirely blame them in this instance, after all. Do these look like the actions of a man that you can trust? Even Weiss is taken aback by the authoritarian police state that her homeland has turned into.
There's obviously something very wrong.
So I don't think it's entirely unreasonable that Team RWBY took the approach that they did. Now, was it correct? In hindsight, probably not, but how much would it have really mattered if they did? I'll be examining the major timeline events and how they'd be affected by this decision, as well as some of the possible steps that our heroes could take, and their benefits and drawbacks. I want to preface this with, this is all with the benefit of hindsight, kind of like saves coming in Fallout to get your desired dialogue tree result. Surprisingly, there is little that would likely change in the main plotline of Volume 7 if this hypothetical went through, but the end result is extremely consequential for the upcoming Salem invasion, because they'd be presenting a unified front and not a fractured one. For argument's sake, we'll say this moment right here is when RWBY dares to do what Ozpin did in his early days by taking a blind leap of faith on someone else.
That's not normal. How did he—
We don't know. We were in a train crash, and ever since, suddenly Oz wasn't there anymore.
It's the worst news yet. Did you learn anything from him about the relics before?
He told us the lamp can answer 3 questions. But all the questions were used up already.
Now, if Ironwood's reaction to later episodes is anything to go by, he won't be jumping for joy over this news, but he'll still be determined to defend his homeland all the same. Now, if you're in Ironwood's shoes, the problem with knowing that Salem can't be killed and her backstory is that it doesn't really solve your immediate problems. Salem's attack will be inevitable, and it may already be underway for all you know. Her lieutenants could have infiltrated at any moment and there would be almost no way of knowing. This is the problem with Ozpin's very reactive approach. Salem in almost every case will have the initiative and the element of surprise. There are a number of factors that have varying degrees of influence that could help them form a better response to Salem when she comes. Let's look at a few of them. The Amity Tower Project. Team RWBY would want to push forward with restoring the tower since teamwork and cooperation are their core values. Also, unifying the world is something that will likely be very effective against Salem should they be able to control the initial public reaction. Her battle with Ozpin has almost always been one of political manipulation rather than direct confrontation. She knows for a fact that she can't handle all the kingdoms united, so she divides them up and conquers them individually. How fast or slow the tower will be completed will depend on how they want to proceed with the next factor. Reconciliation with Mantle. It's clear that in order to win a protracted conflict, access to resources and Mantle's industry will be vital. As Nora pointed out, it's simply not fair for Mantle to bear the entire burden, and nor will they tolerate it if things go too far. Any sort of revolt or insurrection would be disastrous for the Amity Project, and by extension, the Kingdom. Placating the masses via small concessions to Mantle will likely ease tensions, and Robin Hill's vigilantism may be mitigated. This would all ensure a higher percentage chance of Amity Tower being completed. Whether or not Ironwood has the ability to realize this before an insurrection breaks out is a whole other topic of discussion. Supposing that Nora's pleas still happen and he listens, repairing the breach in the wall would be priority 1. Continued Huntsman presence in the city as a means of community outreach could be helpful. Faceless soldiers or police officers with weapons are usually not who you would want to send in to ease tensions, but if you must, and this is probably a situation where one must, humanizing the army would do much to help build goodwill between the government and the masses. Replacing these ridiculous helmets with more conventional models, adding service numbers and names will not only humanize the soldiers, but create a high degree of accountability for their actions. Now, even if this all means slowing down construction on Amity by a little, the returns in a grateful and secure populace and an on-site hometown hero would be tremendous. Also, this would soften the blow of the Salem announcement since public morale and national unity would be much, much higher. The Council. Controlling the majority votes in the Council is of the utmost importance. While Councilman Slate and Councilwoman Camilla aren't exactly on Ironwood's side, they are shown to be very reasonable and will take the General's advice. They are also shown to be patient to a fault, allowing Ironwood's grip on the kingdom to extend for months on end. Breaking the news to them about Salem as soon as possible would be ideal. If there's even a remote chance that Jacques would win that council seat, it'd be prudent to turn the council against him before he can have any sort of damaging influence. Getting ahead of bad facts is paramount here. If Robin were elected on the other hand, that'd be better, But if Mantle's interests were ever compromised, or if she wanted more, there would naturally be a lot of pushback. The Maiden and the Relics. Now this is going to sound very questionable, and I'm going to expect a lot of response, but hear me out. It may be time to consider the possibility of euthanizing Freya prematurely. There were moral arguments in place against killing Amber straight away, but that was before this entire crisis began. Although it is humane to let her live out the remainder of her mortal life, at this point in the story there's no telling how long that will take. It is valuable time that the prospective Winter Maiden could be using to train up and get comfortable with her new powers. It is an unfortunate cold calculation of war, but do the few remaining months of an old woman's life really outweigh the hundreds if not thousands of lives that could be saved? I don't really have an answer for that, and if that question makes you uncomfortable or gives you pause, congratulations, you're still human. Not like this bitch. The lamp. Now I'll be brief on this one since it was covered ad nauseum, but using the remaining question on the lamp is definitely something that they should be considering. This is a decisive moment and it could be the difference maker. Revealing Salem. This card should be played at the last possible moment as it is in the show proper. While revealing Salem early on in the game might give Ironwood the necessary reasoning to declare martial law right away, I have little doubt that resistance movements would spring up and it would further incentivize Salem to attack immediately. Or alternatively, she could simply wait it out. An immortal witch pulling the strings for thousands of years isn't exactly believable, especially when it seems that there's a power-hungry general out to grab more power. Now with all these in mind, while the team would be better positioned to present a unified front, there are still a number of factors out of their hands. Jacques Schnee would still be a shit disturber, Watts would still hack the election, Robin would still go full vigilante if key concessions to Mantle aren't made, and Cinder and Neo would still likely be ready to strike at a moment's notice. Our heroes' plans will still be derailed, but probably not to such a destructive extent. It'd be difficult to predict the butterfly effect in this scenario since a flutter happened so early on in the timeline, but assuming everything goes well, will Salem still commit to her attack? If the field reports come back to her that Atlas is completely unified and behind Ironwood, who's to say that she simply won't attack Vacuo instead? Although they likely have a larger proportion of Huntsmen by now, it's clear from the lore and the novels that they were experiencing their own troubles and a huge influx of refugees. While it's easy to point at Team Ruby's actions as less than honest, pretending that it's a black and white fix-everything solution betrays some of the complexity of this scenario. While it would be helpful, I'm sad to say Atlas has been on a collision course since after the fall of Beacon. Now of course this video would run a bit long if we entertained every possible alternate timeline, so I'll ask you guys, what do you think would happen if Ruby told the truth initially? I'm looking forward to reading what you guys come up with as usual, and I'll be examining them in a follow-up video in 2 weeks' time. So be sure to be subscribed and have notifications on for when that video comes out. Also, please do consider supporting us on Patreon, checking out our merch, and following us on Discord and Twitter. Thank you for watching.